Her hand is at my shoulder before I hear her move. 1 second I am alone at the window, the privacy film turning the city into gray shapes, and the next her palm is warm and flat against the base of my neck. Her thumb settling exactly where my pulse is loudest, and I make a sound I have never made before in my life. Something between a breath and a word that doesn't exist. She turns me around, both hands now. One cups my jaw without asking, tilts my face up toward hers. She looks at me for exactly 1 second. Then her mouth is at my throat, deliberate, open, just beneath my ear, and my knees make a decision without consulting me. If you want to hear uncensored too hot for YouTube stories, check out my Patreon in the description. Tell us where you're watching from and subscribe. Rewind 4 hours earlier. Before any of that was possible. The safe house has floor-to-ceiling windows and nothing to look at. The privacy film turns whatever is outside into shapes. Gray rectangles, pale light moving across pale light, the city reduced to geometry that cannot see in. It is November. The light fails by 4 in the afternoon, and when it goes, it takes with it the last pretense that time is moving the way it is supposed to. I have been here for 3 weeks. She has been here for 3 weeks. There are exactly 12 feet between where she stands and where I sit, and I have measured that distance so many times in the past 21 days that I could describe it in my sleep. I know it by the number of concrete floor tiles between the kitchen counter and the edge of the couch. I know it by how many steps she takes when she crosses it. 6, always 6. She doesn't adjust her stride for the space. She crosses it the same way every time, like the distance is already settled, like she's made a decision about it. I haven't made any decisions. That is the problem. The safe house is minimal in the way that places built for disappearance always are. Open floor plan, single bedroom, industrial kitchen with a counter that runs the length of one wall and creates a natural sightline division. Stand on the kitchen side, and you can see every angle of the living space, every window, both entry points, and the person sitting on the couch, without appearing to look at them directly. I know she uses this. I have watched her use it. She stands at the kitchen counter with the security tablet in her hand, and I pretend I cannot feel where her attention is going. The tablet sits on the counter now. Green light, secure perimeter. It has been green for 6 days and 12 hours. My laptop is open on the low table in front of the couch. The cursor blinks. I haven't touched the keys in an hour. The documentary footage is on the drive, plugged into the left side port. I deleted 15 minutes of it this morning at 7 a.m. when I thought she was running the perimeter check and wouldn't see. She sees everything. I have known this since day 2 when she told me, in the same neutral professional tone she uses for everything, that I'd been walking too close to the window in the mornings and could I move my routine back 6 feet. So yes, she saw. I am staring at the cursor blink and not touching the keys, and not opening the case folder I haven't opened in 6 days, and she is standing at the kitchen counter with the tablet and not saying anything. This is what we do. We occupy the same 1,400 square feet of industrial silence and orbit each other with a precision that is starting to feel less like professionalism and more like something I cannot name without getting myself into trouble. Her name is Riven. That's the whole name. She gave it to me on day 1 with a handshake and no explanation of what it was short for, or whether it was a call sign or a name her parents gave her. I did not ask. I am a documentary filmmaker. I make my living asking people questions they don't want to answer, and I did not ask. Something about her makes the questions stop forming before they can leave my mouth. I find that deeply inconvenient. She is tall. I notice this every time she crosses the room, and I'm not sure why it still surprises me after 3 weeks, except that the way she carries it changes depending on the context. When she arrived on day 1, she came through the door and the room reorganized around her entrance without any announcement. The security contact who'd arranged the detail said her name, and she walked in, and conversation stopped. Not because she'd done anything, but because the room's attention had somewhere to go and went there. She stands differently when she is assessing a space than when she is at rest, though I am starting to doubt she is ever fully at rest. There is always something in the quality of her stillness that is not actually stillness. It is readiness, wearing stillness's coat. Her hair is black, and she keeps it pulled back in a low knot at the nape of her neck. On day 4, I watched her redo it at the kitchen counter. She'd been running the perimeter check in the early morning. I'd woken up to the sound of her boots on concrete and then silence. And when I came out, she was standing at the sink, redoing the knot with both arms raised, and the tactical jacket she wears during perimeter checks was on the counter instead of on her body, and I saw, for the first time, the shape of her, in just the black fitted tee and the charcoal trousers. I went back to the bedroom and stood very still for a moment. That was day 4. I have been standing very still about various things ever since. She does not sit. This is the human detail I catalogued first, after the scale of her and after the quality of her stillness. She does not sit in the safe house unless she is eating, and she eats quickly and stands up again. She stands near the kitchen counter, or she stands at the window, or she stands at the door to the bedroom when I've gone to bed, which I know because I hear her boots on the concrete and then I hear them stop. She doesn't talk much. The voice she uses for 21 days is neutral and professional and calibrated to convey information without effect. You should eat something. The car is downstairs. The check-in call is in 10 minutes. Green light, secure perimeter. I do not know what her other voice sounds like, and this is also something I have been standing very still about. You should eat something. I look up. She has crossed the kitchen. 6 steps. The tablet is on the counter. She's opened the cabinet, the same cabinet she opens every afternoon at approximately 4:30, and she's taking down a glass. The motion is the same. Glass, water from the tap, 2 ice cubes from the tray in the freezer. She does this every afternoon. She has done it every afternoon for 21 days. She sets the glass on the kitchen counter and I get up and get it, or she walks halfway and sets it on the island and I get it from there. This afternoon, something is different. She crosses the whole room, all 6 steps, and she sets the glass on the table in front of me, directly in front of me, close enough that I can see the condensation already forming on the outside of it, and her hand does not leave it immediately. I look up. The light is diffuse and shadowless through the privacy film. Her jaw is sharp in it, the line of it catching what little contrast the late afternoon holds. Her eyes are dark and deeply set, and she watches me the way she watches the perimeter tablet. The same focused, calculating attention, like she's assessing variables, running probabilities, checking for breach. The green light blinks on the counter behind her. Her hand is still on the glass, fingers curved around the rim. She's looking at me and I am looking at her hand, and neither of us speaks for a moment that is longer than either of us has let a moment between us be in 3 weeks. You're not okay, she says. Not a question. It lands like a fact she's been sitting with for a while, a conclusion she arrived at through observation, and is now stating aloud because it has become unavoidable. I look away first. I'm fine, I say. She doesn't move. The glass sits between us, condensation on my side of it, her fingertips still touching the rim on hers. I can see her thumb from where I'm sitting, the length of it against the cool glass, not quite moving, the pressure of it almost imperceptible. Almost. You haven't opened the case folder in 6 days, she says. I pick up a loose edge of the throw blanket that has been living on this couch for 3 weeks, worrying at the corner of it without purpose. I've been thinking. You deleted the last 15 minutes of footage you shot. My hands stop. You saw that. I see everything in this space. That's the job. The job. Yes, that is exactly what this is. She's here because someone sent me 3 separate written threats in the span of 30 days because I spent 14 months documenting a procurement corruption ring that reaches into 3 levels of municipal government. And the footage on that drive is the reason they sent the threats, and the reason they are real, and the reason a security contractor with dark eyes and a low knot at her nape has been living 12 feet away from me in an industrial safe house for 3 weeks and watching my cursor blink. It's my footage, I say. It's evidence. Her thumb moves against the glass. 1 centimeter, maybe less. The motion is slow and entirely involuntary in the way that small movements are when a person has stopped managing them. I watch it without meaning to. 3 separate threats because of what's in that drive. You're deleting it. I'm not deleting. I stop. I am deleting it. That is exactly what I am doing. I deleted 15 minutes this morning, and I have been sitting in front of the drive for the past hour trying to decide whether to delete the rest. She has been standing at that counter watching me not touch the keys, and she has already reached the correct conclusion. Of course she has. I look at the glass between us instead of at her. Maybe I'm done, I say. The silence that follows is not the same as all the other silences we've built together in 21 days. There is something different in it, a quality of pressure. I look up. Her composure, which I have never seen crack once in 3 weeks. Not during the threat call on day 9, not during the middle of the night perimeter alarm on day 13 that turned out to be a motion sensor malfunction, not during any of it. Does something it has not done before. The muscle at the corner of her jaw tightens. I can see it from here. It tightens and then slowly releases. She pulls her hand back from the glass. No, she says. You're not. 2 words, delivered in the same neutral register, but something has shifted underneath it. Something in the frequency of it, like a foundation that has changed its relationship to the weight it's carrying. I stare at the glass. You don't know that, I say. I know you. I look up at her. She appears to realize immediately what she has said, because the jaw muscle tightens again, just barely, just once, and she turns away from me, takes 3 steps toward the window, and stops. Her back is to me now. Her shoulders under the black tactical jacket are held rather than relaxed, a distinction I have learned to read in 3 weeks. The difference between how she holds herself when she is comfortable and how she holds herself when something is costing her something. Right now, something is costing her something. I watch her back, and I watch the window she's facing, and I watch her hand come up slowly and brace flat against the dark frame of it. Fingers spread, palm pressing in, the whole shape of her arm a line of restrained force. And I watch the 12 feet of industrial concrete between us become something with actual weight, a substance, a presence, something that has been here all along and has just decided to stop pretending it isn't. She stands where I was standing an hour ago. I have been in this room for 3 weeks. She has been in this room for 3 weeks. I have edited 240 hours of documentary footage in my career, and I know, down to the frame, when a subject is performing composure and when they're actually calm. She has been performing it for approximately the last 2 minutes, and before that she was actually calm. That's what makes it notable. She has been genuinely, professionally detached for 21 days, and something I said cracked it. Maybe I'm done, I said. 2 words from me, and the muscle at her jaw did something it has never done, and her hand is white-knuckled against the window frame in the failing afternoon light, and the 12 feet between us has taken on mass. She doesn't look at me. They threatened you, she says, because you're good. Her voice is lower than her professional register. Something underneath it I have not heard before in 21 days. Something rough at the very bottom of it, something she's not fully managing. Not because you're wrong. I don't answer. The throw blanket is in my lap. I'm holding the corner of it again without having decided to. My hands do what they want in this safe house. They stopped consulting me somewhere around day 8. I've watched you work, she says, still facing the window. For 3 weeks. You don't delete footage unless you're scared. Her knuckles are still white against the frame. Riven, I say. She turns. I stand. The chair scrapes concrete in the silence, and it sounds enormous. She is 12 feet away and looking at me, and the late afternoon light is behind her, diffused through the privacy film. And I cannot read her face the way I can usually read it, because the light is all wrong from this angle, and also because my eyes are doing something I am not going to examine right now. I am scared, I say. Okay? I am. I've been scared for 30 days, and the threats are real, and the footage is the reason, and every day I sit here, I am aware that it exists on that drive, and every day I think about what happens if. What happens when. I stop. My throat has closed on something. She has not moved. She's still 12 feet away and still looking at me, and her hand has come away from the window frame and is hanging at her side now. Not fisted, just present. And she is watching me with the same focused attention she gives the perimeter tablet, except the perimeter tablet has never looked back at her. I know, she says. 2 words again, but different ones. I press my mouth closed and look at the window behind her, because I am not going to do whatever my eyes want to do right now in front of this woman who has been professional and correct and carefully distant for 21 days and deserves to keep it that way. Sit down, she says. It comes out differently than she intended it. Softer. She hears it, I think, because she adds, Please. I sit. She crosses the room. 6 steps. She picks up the glass of water from the table in front of me and sets it back down slightly closer to me. A small recalibration, a few inches, nothing, and then she does something she has not done in 3 weeks. She lowers herself onto the arm of the couch at the opposite end. Not on the couch, on the arm of it. As far from me as it is possible to be while still being on the same piece of furniture. But she sits. I wrap both hands around the glass. The condensation is cold against my palms. Neither of us speaks. Outside the privacy film, the city becomes more geometry as the light fails. The perimeter tablet blinks green on the counter. I can hear it from here, a sound I have learned so well over 21 days that I no longer hear it consciously, the way you stop hearing the refrigerator hum after a while. Secure perimeter, green, safe. How long has it been? She says finally. Since you've talked to anyone about any of this? I think about it honestly. Which part? Any of it. I wrap my fingers a little tighter around the glass. 30 days, the night the first threat came. I called my editor. She told me to stop filming. I said I'd think about it. She called a security contact and sent you. That was the last time I talked to anyone about any of it. She's looking at me from the far end of the couch arm, with her hands loose in her lap and her dark eyes doing that focused, careful thing. You've been carrying that alone, she says. I start to say that's the job, which is what I would normally say, which is the register I operate in. Yes, I say instead. She nods. Once. The motion is small and genuine in a way that makes something in my sternum respond before I can tell it not to. The footage, she says. I look at the drive plugged into my laptop. The small black rectangle that contains 14 months of my work and 3 people's documented corruption, and the reason I've been living in an industrial box with a woman who measures rooms and sightlines. Yeah? You're not going to delete it. You don't know that. You've had access to it for 21 days. You deleted 15 minutes this morning and stopped. You've been looking at the closed laptop for an hour. Her gaze is direct and uncompromising. You're not going to delete it. You're trying to find a reason not to. Those are different things. I stare at the laptop. The cursor has long since stopped blinking. The screen has gone dark with inactivity. What if the reason isn't good enough, I say. She doesn't answer right away. The silence is long and has a particular quality. It is not uncomfortable the way silence sometimes is in this safe house. It is more like she is thinking carefully about what she actually wants to say, which is unusual. She generally says exactly what she means with no preamble. 14 months, she says finally. 3 governments, an ongoing procurement fraud that has been affecting public contracts for 6 years. You spent 14 months following it. I know what's on the drive. Why did you start? I look at her. The documentary, she says. Why did you make it? It's such a simple question. It has such a simple answer. I open my mouth to give it, and something happens in my chest. A pressure, a tightening, something that has been building for 30 days and is now directly adjacent to whatever professional composure I have been performing in front of this woman since day one. Because it mattered, I say. My voice comes out lower than I intended. Because somebody had to, and I was in the room. Because I'm good at it. A pause. Because the people who got hurt by it are real, and I met them, and they let me point a camera at their faces, and I told them it would mean something. She holds my gaze for a long, unhurried moment. Then that's your reason, she says. It is not complicated. I have known this. I have been sitting with the case folder and the footage drive and the blinking cursor for 6 days trying to construct a reason to walk away, and she has just handed me back the thing I already knew in 6 words. That is an extremely annoying quality in a person. You're very certain about other people's lives, I say. I'm certain about what I've observed. 3 weeks is sufficient. You've been here for 3 weeks and you've barely spoken to me. I've been here for 3 weeks and I've watched you work. She shifts slightly on the couch arm. Not a dramatic movement, almost imperceptible, but her weight redistributes and the black tactical jacket moves with her, and she is looking at me with something in her expression that is different from what I've been receiving for 21 days. You talk when you're onto something. You go quiet when you're afraid. You eat less when the case is bothering you. You run the same footage loop 3 times before you catch what you're looking for, and your face changes when you find it. You deleted 15 minutes this morning, and you haven't touched the laptop since. I stare at her. That's a lot, I say. For someone who's barely spoken to me. Her jaw muscle does the thing, just the edge of it. Yes, she says, and says nothing else. And the single word lands in the middle of the room with the weight of a much longer sentence. I look at the glass of water in my hands. My thumbs are at the sides of it, tracing the condensation without purpose. And it occurs to me that I am doing with my hands what I watched her do with her thumb against the glass earlier. Something small and involuntary that I have stopped managing. We sit. The perimeter tablet blinks green. The city outside is fully dark now through the privacy film. All the shapes gone uniform. The light reduced to smear and blur. I can hear the faint sound of ribbons breathing from the far end of the couch arm, even controlled, slightly slower than average, in the way that people's breathing is when they are making a deliberate effort to manage it. I notice this, and I file it with everything else I've been filing in the wrong category for 21 days. Riven, I say. Yes. I look up. She's looking at me. The distance between us on the couch is approximately 8 feet, which is closer than we usually are when we are both seated, which almost never happens because she doesn't sit. She is sitting now. She's sitting 4 feet closer to me than she has been for most of the past 3 weeks, and she is looking at me with those focused dark eyes, and the jacket is still on, and her hands are still in her lap, and I have to look away. Thank you, I say to the window. For saying that. A pause. You don't have to thank me, she says. I know, I'm doing it anyway. She doesn't respond. I hear her exhale, carefully, through the nose, the kind of exhale that is the end of a controlled breath that she'd been holding without meaning to. I turn back to the laptop, wake the screen. The footage drive icon sits on the desktop. I look at it for a moment, then I open the case folder. I hear nothing from her end of the couch, but she doesn't get up. The case folder opens. The documents are all where I left them 6 days ago. Interview transcripts, procurement records, dated correspondence, photographs I took outside 3 different government buildings over 14 months. The names of the people who talked to me are highlighted in different colors according to how much exposure they accepted. Red for the ones who let me use their faces, yellow for background only, gray for the ones I've never acknowledged publicly at all, the ones whose cooperation could still cost them something. I scroll through it. She doesn't get up. We sit in the industrial safe house with the privacy film and the green perimeter light and the city gone to black outside. And I work, and she's still 4 feet closer than she has been for 21 days and not getting up. And this is the longest she has sat in my presence and the closest she has been while sitting, and I am not looking at her. I am extremely aware of her. This is the thing I have been filing incorrectly. For 3 weeks, I have been categorizing Riven under professional necessity, under things that are part of the structure of this period of my life, like the safe house and the perimeter check and the green light and the glass of water she brings me at 4:30. I have been treating her as a feature of the situation rather than as a person who does things that produce specific involuntary responses in my body and my attention. She said, I know you, and something in my chest went quiet and then loud in a sequence that I did not ask for. She said, I've watched you work, and named the specific things she'd seen, and my hands tightened on the glass. She's sitting 4 feet away from me right now on the arm of the couch and not getting up when she could. And I am not going to examine what my hands are doing right now or what my breathing is doing right now, but I am acutely aware of both. The case folder is open. I read for 20 minutes, then 30. At some point she stands, 6 steps back to the kitchen, the sound of the cabinet, water from the tap, and returns with the glass refilled and sets it by my left hand without me looking up and goes back to the kitchen counter. The 12 feet are back. The geometry of the room is restored. I sit with the restoration of it for a moment, and I notice what my body does with it. A kind of deflation, minor, involuntary, the dropping of a pressure that had been building without announcement. I notice this, and I file it in the correct category this time, which is a category that I do not have a clean name for and which is going to be a problem. She is the security contractor I hired to keep me alive for 3 weeks. She is professional and precise, and she has kept a specific and careful distance. She brought me water. She doesn't sit unless she has to. She has watched my cursor blink for an hour, and she waited until the correct moment to cross the room and tell me the thing I needed to hear in plain, unornamented words. She said, I know you. And she looked at me from across the room, and she is 12 feet away again, and the green light is blinking, and I am reading the case folder, and we are not going to talk about any of this. I keep reading. The hour passes. At some point, she crosses back to the window. Not toward me, just to the window itself, taking up a position near the far frame, her preferred surveillance angle. And stands there. I am aware of her standing there. The quality of the silence in the room has changed again, and I am aware of that too. She is not at rest. She is performing rest. She is standing at the window with her eyes on the privacy film, and whatever she is thinking is producing a very slight, very controlled tension in the line of her shoulders under the jacket. I close the case folder. I look at the footage drive. I look at my hands. The 15 minutes I deleted this morning. I know what's in them. I know exactly. An interview I conducted 4 months ago with a woman whose husband signed one of the falsified procurement approvals and who didn't know until I showed her the documents. She cried for 11 minutes on camera. Not performed, not managed. Just the actual fact of 11 minutes of someone whose life has been altered by information they never asked for. I filmed it because it was real and because it mattered. I deleted it this morning because I was sitting in this safe house at 7 a.m. thinking about what it means to put someone's real grief in a documentary that might cost me my life, and I lost my nerve. I look at the drive, I look at Riven at the window. I deleted footage of someone crying, I say. She turns, not quickly, just the slow, deliberate turn that is her version of sudden attention, the body following the head at the same measured pace. The interview, she says. Yes. Why? Because she didn't know what it would cost her. When she agreed to be on camera, she didn't know the footage was going to end up in a safe house. She thought it was going to end up in a documentary. It is going to end up in a documentary. Yes, but... I stop. I press my thumb against the corner of the laptop screen where the drive is plugged in. She was crying, really crying. Not the kind of thing people want to have in a film. The kind of thing that's real enough to be unfair to show. Riven is quiet for a moment, then... Did she consent to filming? Yes. During the interview, did she ask you to stop? No. After the interview, did she ask you to remove her from the documentary? No. A pause. She said she wanted people to understand what it felt like. Those exact words. Then you deleted the footage, Riven says. Because you're scared, not because she asked you to. I don't answer. That's not a judgment, she says. That's an observation. I look at the drive. I can retrieve it, she says. If you deleted from the working copy, the raw files are still on the drive. I look up at her. She says this the way she says everything. Neutral, professional, the same register she's used for 21 days. Except she's standing at the window where I was standing an hour ago, and she is looking at me with those dark eyes, and the distance between us is 12 feet, and also something else that doesn't have a clean measurement. You know how to recover deleted footage, I say. I know how to recover most things. There is a silence. That wasn't a double meaning, she says, which is the first time in 21 days that she has acknowledged subtext, which means she is aware there is subtext, which means I need to do something with this information, and I need to do it very carefully. I know, I say, which is not true. She crosses to the counter. The kitchen space reasserts itself between us. She takes the tablet from the counter, checks the perimeter, green, secure, and sets it back down. Then she does something she has not done before. She opens the cabinet where she keeps her own things, a small separate space from the shared kitchen, 3 shelves precisely organized, and takes out a flat, black object approximately the size of a deck of cards. She crosses the room, 6 steps, and sets it on the table in front of me next to the glass. A data recovery device, professional grade. The footage isn't gone, she says. When you're ready. She goes back to the counter. I sit with the recovery device on the table in front of me and the glass of water beside it and the case folder open on the laptop and the footage drive in the left port and the 12 feet of concrete between us. And I am aware with a clarity that I have been trying to avoid all evening that everything Riven has done in the past 2 hours has been an act of a specific and precise kind of care. Not professional care, not the contracted variety, a different kind. The kind that notices a cursor has been blinking for an hour and crosses the room. The kind that sits on the arm of the couch instead of going back to the counter when it should. The kind that knows how to recover deleted footage and tells you so in the same neutral register, so you don't have to feel taken care of. Which is the most specific and exact form of consideration I have encountered in 30 days and possibly longer. I look at the data recovery device. I pick it up. Riven, I say. Yes. What do you do between perimeter checks? A pause. The length of it is unusual. She does not pause like this. She answers questions directly and without lag. The job, she says. What does the job look like when nothing's happening? Another pause, shorter. Monitoring, assessment, maintaining the protocols. And in between those things, a long moment, the perimeter tablet blinks green. The silence has a different texture than all the other silences. She's managing something on her side of the room, and I can hear it in the quality of the quiet. I think, she says finally. The word lands strangely. She doesn't usually start sentences with I think. She starts them with declarative certainties. I read the briefings again. I checked the threat assessment updates. She stops. The stop is not a natural trailing off. It is a chosen cutoff, something pulled back at the last possible moment. You what? I say. Nothing. Riven. Nothing. The professional register is back, clean and intact. Something to eat, it's been 4 hours. I look at the data recovery device in my hand. I set it back on the table next to the glass. I stand. The chair scrapes concrete. We move around the kitchen space with the calibrated awareness of two people who have shared 1,400 square feet for 3 weeks without ever touching by accident. She goes to the refrigerator, I go to the cabinet for the second glass. She takes things out and sets them on the counter. I stay on the opposite side of the island. The island is approximately 3 feet wide and runs almost the full length of the kitchen space. We stand on opposite sides of it while she assembles something from what's in the refrigerator, and I open the things she points to, and neither of us touches the other, and neither of us touches the same object at the same moment. She sets a plate down on the island. She sets a second plate down on her side of the island. She doesn't come around to my side. We eat across the island from each other, 3 feet of counter between us, and the perimeter tablet blinks green on the far end, and the privacy film shows the dark city, and I eat without tasting anything, and watch her hands when she's not watching me, watching them. Her hands are careful. That's the word. Everything she does with a precision that is not caution. It is the opposite of caution. It is confidence that has been refined into economy. Nothing wasted, nothing accidental. She picks up the fork and uses it and sets it down and picks it up again, and there is nothing in any of these motions that is not exactly what it needs to be. I eat half of what's on my plate and stop. She notices. That's not enough. I know. You know, and you're stopping anyway. I'll eat more later. She looks at me, the assessment look. She picks up her fork and uses it and sets it down and looks at me again. What's wrong? She says. Nothing new, I say. Which is true in one sense and spectacularly false in another. She considers this. The footage, the case folder, the fact that I've been sitting in this box for 3 weeks with no end date in sight, and the person who can tell me when it ends is in a separate department of my security contractors agency and won't answer my calls. I pause. And other things. She doesn't ask about the other things. I watch her not ask about them. We finish eating in silence. She takes the plates, washes them with the same economy she brings to everything. I stand at the end of the counter and watch the motion of her hands in the water and think about the recovery device on the table and the case folder and the footage drive and the 15 minutes I can get back when I'm ready. And I think about her sitting on the arm of the couch when she doesn't sit, and her saying, I know you in the voice that is below her professional register, and her not finishing the sentence that started with I. Go get some sleep, she says. I look at the window. It is fully dark outside. It's 8 o'clock, I say. You slept 3 hours last night? I did not know she knew that. I have been getting up in the night. I have been moving quietly, specifically so she would not hear. How did you? Light under the bedroom door. Movement against the privacy film. Of course. I'm fine. Mara. She says my name. She has said it before, in the first week, in the context of instructions. Mara, we need to move your workstation away from the window. Mara, the check-in is in 10, but she says it now without the instruction after it. Just the name. And something in my chest performs a response that I have been managing all evening and is becoming increasingly difficult to manage. I'm not tired, I say. I know. She sets the last plate in the drying rack, turns around. But you should try. She crosses the room, 6 steps to the kitchen counter to pick up the perimeter tablet, checks it, green, sets it back. Then she crosses to the door of the bedroom, not to go in. She doesn't go into my space. She has been very precise about that for 3 weeks. And she stops in the doorway. Her back is to me. Her hand is on the doorframe. The footage will still be there tomorrow, she says. So will the case folder. I know. And I will be here. She says this to the doorframe, not to me, but it travels the whole length of the room anyway. I stand at the counter and look at her back and look at her hand on the doorframe and look at the space she occupies in the doorway. The lines of her, tall and still, and carrying the jacket and the 12-foot professional distance like armor she has chosen rather than been assigned. And something that has been building for 21 days is very close to the surface right now, and I am choosing to go to sleep instead of acknowledging it. Good night, Riven, I say. She takes her hand off the doorframe, steps back. turns to face me from the correct distance. "Good night," she says, in the professional register, even, controlled, and does not say my name again, which I notice and file in the correct category, and carry with me into the bedroom where I do not sleep for a very long time. The next morning is the same as the previous mornings, and is also nothing like them. I come out at 7, and she is at the counter with the tablet and the green light, and she has already made the coffee. She does this every morning. The coffee is finished by the time I appear. There is always a second cup ready, because she observed on day 1 that I take a second cup and has not waited for me to ask since. And I take it from the counter without looking at her directly and stand at the edge of the kitchen space and drink it. "Morning," I say. "Morning," she says, neutral, professional. She checks the tablet, green, sets it down. I look at the couch. The throw blanket is on it. I look at the data recovery device on the table where I left it last night. I look at the closed laptop. I sit. I open the laptop. Wake the screen. The drive icon is there. I look at it for a moment, and then I look at the recovery device, and then I pick it up, and I look at it, and then I set it down again and look at the drive icon. She doesn't say anything. She's at the counter with her coffee. I can hear her drinking it. Careful sips, the cup set back down on the concrete counter with precision, never a sound. Everything she does is like that. Contained, measured. "Riven." "Yes." "Walk me through how this works." I hold up the recovery device. "The recovery." I hear her set the cup down. Then her boots on the concrete, not 6 steps, more. She goes a different route, comes around the island to the couch side of the table, and she crouches beside the table so that we are at approximately the same level, which means she is very close, maybe 2 feet, and she takes the recovery device from me. Her fingers brush the side of my hand. I keep looking at the laptop screen. She does not acknowledge the contact. "Connect it to the drive here," she says. She leans forward, and in leaning forward, she's closer, and close enough that I can smell the specific scent of her for the first time at this proximity. Cedar and cold linen, something clean and precise, and underneath it, faint, the warmth of the coffee. She connects the device to the drive port. Her elbow is 2 inches from my knee. The device creates an image of the full drive. It reads below the file system layer, so it captures what's been marked for deletion. You'll see everything that was there. "Everything," I say. "Everything." She stays crouched by the table, the device connected, both of us looking at the laptop screen. "You'll have to go through the recovered files and decide what to keep." "That sounds like a lot." "It is." She's close enough that I can see the way the light hits the plane of her cheek from below. The diffused winter light through the privacy film, shadowless, finding things she doesn't usually let be found. There's a small scar at her temple, barely visible. I do not look at it for more than a second because I am keeping my eyes on the laptop screen. "Thank you," I say. She starts to stand. The motion takes her away from me. The cedar and linen moves with her. The proximity reduces by increments, and my skin registers its departure, the way you register a change in air pressure, in a place I could not point to if asked, and also in every place at once. She goes back to the counter. We do not talk about her fingers brushing my hand. I spend 3 hours going through the recovered files. She runs a perimeter check at 9 and again at 11. The green light holds. At noon, she makes lunch with the same economy she brings to dinner and sets it on the island, and I come around to my side and we eat across from each other again in the silence that has its own specific texture. In the afternoon, I get the footage back. All of it. The 15 minutes I deleted, the woman crying for 11 of them, every word she said about what it felt like to discover the shape of the lie that had been living in her house. I watch it 3 times with my headphones in. The 3rd time, at the end, I take the headphones out and sit in the silence of the safe house and look at the window. She is at the counter. She has been at the counter all afternoon, the tablet in her hands, the green light. She is not looking at me. She is monitoring. She is doing the job. I look at her back. I think about the woman crying for 11 minutes. I think about the red and yellow and gray names in the case folder. I think about 14 months of work. That is the most important thing I have ever done, and the most frightening. And I think about sitting across the island from Riven for 3 weeks with 12 feet of concrete between us at all times. And I think about the way her thumb moved against the glass yesterday, and the way she said, "I know you," and the way she said, "I will be here to the doorframe." And I think about the recovery device and the cedar and linen and her elbow 2 inches from my knee. I think about how long I've been alone with all of this. I open the case folder. I start to write the ending of the documentary, the final sequence, the connective tissue I've been avoiding, the part where I have to say what all of it means. I write for 2 hours. At some point, she refills my glass without asking. She sets it beside my left hand from behind me. I don't hear her approach. I only know she's there when the glass appears in my peripheral vision and I smell cedar and cold linen close enough to be a physical presence rather than an ambient quality. And then she is gone again, 6 steps back to the counter. I write. By the time I stop, it is 6 in the evening and the light outside is failing again and my hands ache and the document is 3,200 words long and the documentary has an ending. I close the laptop. I look at the window. I have been here for 22 days, 3 weeks contracted, 1 day left. Tomorrow evening, Ribbon's replacement arrives. That is the protocol. Security contractors rotate, extended detail creates vulnerabilities. I was briefed on this at the start, and I did not think about it at the time, and I have not thought about it since, and I am thinking about it now with a directness that I was not ready for. She is at the window again. Standing where she stands. The city is shapes in the privacy film. 1 day. Ribbon! She turns. The light is behind her. I cannot see her face clearly. Yes, she says. Tomorrow, I say. A pause. A single beat. Yes, she says again, and the word is a different shape the second time. I look at the drive on the laptop. I'm going to finish the documentary, I say. When this is over, I'm going to finish it and submit it and let it go where it's going to go. She is quiet for a moment. I know, she says. I deleted the footage because I was scared. I know. I'm still scared. I know. Her voice from the window is below the professional register. Down in the range I've only heard a few times, the one with something rough at the bottom of it. That's not the same thing as done. No, I say. It's not. The silence sits between us, the 12 feet of it. The green light blinks. I think about the word tomorrow and what it contains and what it doesn't. I think about the woman in the footage crying for 11 minutes and saying she wanted people to understand what it felt like. I think about Ribbon's hand on the doorframe last night saying I will be here to the wood. There is something I have been not saying for 22 days. There is a category I have been filing incorrectly. There is a 12-inch space that I have been inhabiting with my body and my attention and not acknowledging. And tomorrow it will be reorganized by a rotation protocol, and I will be in a different safe house or back in my apartment, and she will be on another detail, and none of this will be available to me, and I need to be honest with myself about what that costs. It costs something I am not going to name out loud. Not tonight. Not with 1 day left and the green light blinking and the 12 feet of professional distance, and her still in the jacket, and me still in the oversized cream sweater that I have been wearing so long, it started to smell faintly of this safe house. Of cedar and industrial concrete, and the faint chemical undersmell of the privacy film. I stand. I'm going to go wash my face, I say. She turns back to the window. Yes, she says. I go to the bathroom. I wash my face. I stand at the sink and look at myself in the mirror for a while, the honey blonde hair falling forward, loose and unbrushed, the dark circles that are the residue of 3 weeks of sleeping badly, the oversized sweater, the bare feet on the cold tile. I look like someone who has been in a safe house for 3 weeks. I look like someone who is carrying 22 days of something that needs a different category. I dry my face. I go back out. She's not at the window. She's 3 steps from the couch, moving toward it. She'd been doing something on the far side of the room and is crossing back toward the kitchen. And we are suddenly closer than we have been all day. The geometry of the safe house at this particular angle, creating a narrow corridor between the end of the couch and the kitchen island, and she is in it, and I have walked into it from the other end, and we are approximately 4 feet apart before either of us has processed the recalibration. She stops. I stop. 4 feet. In the narrow space between the couch and the island, the perimeter tablet on the counter behind her, the laptop and the drive and the recovery device on the table to my left. She looks at me. I look at her. There is something happening in the quality of the silence that is different from all the other silences in 22 days. It is not the silence of professional distance. It is not the silence of 2 people who have agreed not to talk about something. It is the silence of a room that has run out of the structures that have been keeping 2 things apart. And I can feel the absence of those structures very precisely. At the base of my throat, at the insides of my wrists. At the specific location between my shoulder blades where her hand would land if she reached past me. She doesn't reach past me. She doesn't move at all. Her hands are at her sides, and she is looking at me with the assessment look. Except it has lost the quality of pure calculation. Something underneath it, underneath the dark eyes and the precise stillness, and the jacket with its 22 days of professional authority. Something involuntary that she is holding still around with the whole elaborate machinery of her composure. I see it. I have been seeing it for days and filing it incorrectly. I see it now correctly. Mara, she says. She says it the way she said it last night. Just the name, nothing else. No instruction following it. The word in her mouth at this distance and in this silence is a different order of thing than it has been before. It does something to the back of my throat, and I let it, which is already a choice. I don't answer. You should, she starts, stops. She does not finish the sentence. The not finishing of it is, somehow, more than the sentence would have been. Tomorrow, she says instead. Yes, I say. We stand in the narrow corridor between the couch and the island. She's 4 feet away and not moving, and I am 4 feet away and not moving. And the perimeter tablet blinks green on the counter, and the city is dark outside the film, and we are as close as we have been in this safe house without a professional pretext. No water glass, no data recovery device, no footage to assess. Just 2 people in a narrow space, and the thing between them that has no clean name, and 22 days of evidence. Her jaw muscle tightens, holds. She takes 1 step to the side, into the kitchen space. The 4 feet become 6, and the narrow corridor is gone, and the geometry of the room is restored. She goes to the counter, picks up the tablet, checks the light. Green, secure. I breathe. Eat something before bed, she says. The professional register is back, intact. She has put it back on like the jacket. I go to the kitchen. We make something and eat it, and put the dishes away and say nothing of substance, and she does not say my name again, and I do not look at her directly, and the 12 feet are back, and the green light blinks, and at 9 o'clock I say goodnight and go to the bedroom. I do not sleep. I lie in the dark on the single bed with the throw blanket that migrated from the couch sometime in the first week and listen to the sound of her boots on the concrete. The perimeter check she runs at 2 a.m., the only one that takes her outside the safe house. The sound of the door, and then the absence of her, and then the sound of the door again, and her boots on the concrete, and then silence. She stands at the window for a while after. I know this because the faint ambient glow of the city through the privacy film shifts minutely in the slice of light under the bedroom door, and then goes still. I listen to the silence of her standing at the window. 22 days. I think about the footage drive and the woman crying and the 3,200 words I wrote today and the ending of the documentary that I finally found. I think about Riven's thumb against the condensation on the glass. I think about cedar and cold linen at close range. I think about her elbow 2 inches from my knee. I think about the narrow corridor between the couch and the island and the 4 feet, and the jaw muscle, and the sentence she didn't finish. I think about tomorrow. At some point I fall asleep with the throw blanket pulled up to my chin. At some point I dream, badly. I come awake in the dark and lie very still for a moment, in the way that you do when you're not sure what woke you, with all the ambient fear of 3 weeks pressing close. The perimeter tablet is in the other room, green, secure. I know this. I also know, in the way that the body knows things before the mind confirms them, that I am going to stay in this bed and breathe and be fine. I lie in the dark. I'm fine. I am in a safe house that has been secure for 6 days, and Riven is in the other room, and I am fine. And I have 22 days of evidence that I am fine. And there is no reason for the inside of my chest to feel the way it feels right now, like something is pressing outward from inside, like 3 weeks of professional distance and 12 feet. And green lights and a glass of water at 4:30 are all pressing on the same point from the outside. And the inside has finally run out of room. I get up. I open the bedroom door. She's at the window. I knew she would be. The city is dark and blurred through the privacy film, and she is standing at the near frame, not the far position, the near one, the one that means she's not looking out so much as standing against something solid, with her arms at her sides and her back not quite to me, turned at an angle that means she saw me emerge from the bedroom door in the reflection of the privacy film before I'd taken a step. She doesn't turn. Not immediately. It's 3 a.m., she says. I know. You should go back to sleep. I know. She turns. In the low light of the safe house, the perimeter tablet's green glow, the diffused ambient bleed from outside. She looks different than she does in the afternoon. Less arranged. She's taken the jacket off at some point. The black fitted tee, the charcoal trousers. The low knot of her hair is slightly looser than it is during the day. She looks like a person who has been awake for hours and is not managing the residue of it. She looks like someone I don't get to keep. "Mara," she says. "Don't," I say. She doesn't. I walk to the window, not to her, to the window, to the gray shapes of the city outside the film, to the spot I occupied yesterday afternoon when I was still pretending I was going to delete the footage and be done with it. I stop there. We are 6 feet apart now, the near position and the middle. "I know what tomorrow is," I say. She's quiet. I know the rotation protocol, and I know it's correct, and I know that's how this has to work. I look at the privacy film. I needed to not be in the bedroom. She is quiet for a long time. I can hear her breathing, even controlled, but not quite the professional register. Something in it that is not fully managed. "I know," she says finally. I look at the gray shapes outside. "I got the footage back," I say. "I know. I wrote the ending. I know. You couldn't possibly know that. I could see you." Her voice in the dark, below the register. "Through the kitchen, the way your face changed." I look at the window. "How did my face change?" A pause. "Like you'd found something you'd stopped expecting to find," she says. I press my palm flat against the privacy film. The glass is cold under it. The city shapes swim. "I have a question," I say. "Yes?" "That sentence, the one you stopped. Today in the kitchen, you should. And then you stopped." Silence. "What was after that?" A longer silence. I hear her exhale through her nose. The controlled kind, the kind that is the management of something that needs managing. "You should stay," she says. Then, "That was what came after." I take my hand off the glass. I turn around. She's in the middle of the room and I am at the window, and we are 6 feet apart, and she is looking at me with her hands at her sides and her jaw set, and the black tee and the slightly loosened knot and the dark eyes in the green light dark, and the thing that has been in this room for 22 days is fully visible now. It is not a suggestion. It is not an ambient quality. It is a direct, declared fact, standing 6 feet away from me in the industrial silence and not blinking. "Stay," she says. Not "you should stay," just the verb, alone. I cross the room, not 6 feet, less. I stop 2 feet from her, which is the closest I've been since this morning's data recovery, and today the smell of cedar and cold linen and coffee is mixed with the warmer quality of late night. Of a person who has been awake for hours in the dark of a room they're keeping safe. I have to look up to meet her eyes at this distance. I do. "That's not in the contract," I say. Her jaw tightens, holds, the muscle, one beat. "No," she says. "It isn't." "Then what is it?" She looks at me for a long moment. Her hands are at her sides. She is not moving. Everything in her posture is the carefully chosen stillness of a person who has made a decision and is waiting for the permission to act on it. Not because she needs permission, because she has decided it matters. "It's what I want," she says, in the voice from below the register, plain and precise and given without softening. I look at her. My hands are at my sides, and my heart is doing something I am not going to name. And every part of me that has been filing things incorrectly for 22 days has just received a large delivery that it is now reorganizing at speed. "Riven," I say. "Yes." I was not going to be the one to say it. I know. The jaw muscle, not tight this time, something different. That's why I did. The 2 feet between us, the green light on the counter, the dark city outside, the throw blanket on the couch, and the jacket on the counter, and the footage drive in my laptop, and the 3,200 words of ending I finally wrote today. And the woman at the window, who is the first person I've let see me in 30 days, and who decided that the 12 feet was no longer the job. I close the distance, not all of it. 1 foot. I am 1 foot away, and I can see the specific quality of her stillness at this range. The held breath, the hands at her sides that are not quite still, a slight movement in the fingers of her left hand. Involuntary, the thing her body is doing that she has not yet allowed the rest of her to do. "Tell me what stay means," I say. She looks down at me. Her breathing has changed at this range, not the controlled, professional rhythm, something shorter, slightly faster, the thing underneath the management, visible at the surface, for the first time in 22 days. It means, she says, that tomorrow the rotation happens and you go back to your apartment, and I go wherever the next detail is. A pause. And it means I have one night to tell you that for 22 days, I have been watching you do the most important work of your life in the most frightening circumstances I have seen a civilian maintain, and I have held 12 feet of distance because that is the job, and I would do it again because that is the job. Another pause, shorter. And I am telling you now because I have one night, and tomorrow neither of us is going to pretend we don't know what happened here. I look at her. That's a lot of words, I say. Yes, she says. It is. I take the last foot. I am standing close enough that I can feel the warmth of her at this range. Not touching, not yet. But the air between us is warm with proximity, and I can see the slight irregularity in her breathing, and the exact way her hands have stilled at her sides, and the small scar at her temple that I noticed this morning at the table and looked away from. I reach up, not to her face. To her shoulder, the flat of my hand pressing against it, feeling the fabric of the black tea, and underneath it, the warmth of her, and underneath that the specific tension of a person who has been holding very still for a very long time. She doesn't move. She's holding still around my hand, the way a person holds still around something they do not want to startle away. My palm on her shoulder, her eyes on my face. Stay, she says again. Not the command. The other kind. The asking kind. The first time in 22 days. Riven, I say. Yes. I was going to delete the footage, I say. This morning I was going to delete all of it and call my editor and tell her I was done and come out of this safe house and go back to my apartment and not finish the documentary and not go back into the field and just... I stop. I look at my hand on her shoulder and then up at her face. You said I know you. On that first day. Yes. You didn't know me. I know what I've observed, she says. You observed someone losing her nerve. I observed someone who was scared and still in the room, she says. That's not losing your nerve. That's what nerve looks like when it's real. I look at her. Something in my chest does the thing it does that I have been managing for 22 days. I stop managing it. My hand on her shoulder, her hands coming up now, both of them, one to my waist, one to the side of my face, the palm flat against my cheek, warm, warmer than expected. The temperature differential registering in the specific location of my cheekbone and spreading from there. And she holds, rather than moves, just holds, the weight of both her hands present and not pulling and not pushing. I've got you, she says, the quiet version, the one that is not a professional reassurance. I make a sound that is not a word. Her thumb moves. Against my cheek, one slow, deliberate arc, from the angle of my jaw to the space just below my eye, unhurried, as if she is learning the shape of it. My eyes close. I cannot manage them. The warmth of her hand on my face, and the warmth of her at close range, and the smell of cedar and cold linen in the dark at 3 a.m., and the sound of her breathing, no longer even, no longer controlled, and her other hand at my waist, the fingers of it, pressing gently once and then holding. I open my eyes. She is looking at me. Her composure is not gone. She has not collapsed. She has not surrendered. She is not less than she has been for 22 days. She is choosing. That is the distinction. Everything she is doing with full deliberation, full awareness, full authority. She is releasing the distance because she has decided to. And the choosing of it is the thing that makes the space between my shoulder blades go alert with something I have no professional category for. Mara, she says. Yes, I say. Her hand at my face, her thumb still, her eyes on mine. I'm going to, she begins. Yes, I say, before she finishes. Her mouth is at my throat, deliberate, open, not a brush, a full settled pressure, warm and exact, placed at the base of my throat, just below my jaw. And I can feel the warmth of her breath preceding it, and the specific temperature of her lips, and then the weight of the touch itself, which is not tentative, which is the opposite of tentative, which is a person who has decided what this is, and is doing it with the same economy and precision she brings to everything. My knees do what they do. She catches me. The arm at my waist tightens. She's there before I've registered losing the ground, her forearm pulling me against her and her hand flat at the small of my back, and I am pressed against the full length of her for the first time in 22 days of 12 feet, and my hands find her by instinct, both of them, fisted in the black fabric of the tee at her sides because I need something to hold, and she is the thing I am holding. Her mouth moves from my throat to the hinge of my jaw. I make another sound that has no name. Her hand at my waist slides, the fingers of it finding the hem of my sweater, not underneath it, just the edge, just the fact of the edge, the smallest possible boundary. And she pulls back, just enough to look at me. Her pupils are wide, her breathing is audible, the jaw muscle is not tight, it is the face of someone who has stopped managing. "Tell me to stop," she says. I pull her back down instead. Her mouth is at my jaw, my throat. The place just beneath my ear where my pulse is loudest, where she put her thumb on day 2, during a perimeter alarm when she checked my pulse automatically and did not comment on the rate, and I know she remembers because she puts her mouth there with the same precision and holds it, and I feel the warmth of her breath and the pressure of her lips and the specific singular fact of being the thing she is choosing to keep safe in a different way than the contract specified. She has been keeping me safe for 22 days. She was contracted for that. This is not the contract. Her arm around me, holding me upright, and my hands in the fabric of her shirt, and the green light blinking on the counter, and the city dark outside, and the 12 feet between us compressed to nothing, to the distance between skin and skin, to the width of a breath. "Mara," she says against my throat. "I know," I say. "Tomorrow." "I know," I say. She pulls back, looks at me, her hand at my face again. The same thumb, the same deliberate arc, the same unhurried wait. Relearning. Or maybe just confirming what she already knew. "Stay," she says. I look at her. Not the window, not the privacy film, not the green light or the footage drive or the case folder or the 3,200 words I wrote today, or the woman in the footage crying for 11 minutes or the 22 days of 12 feet and professional distance and a glass of water at 4:30. Her. Riven. Here in the dark at 3 a.m. in an industrial safe house with the jacket on the counter and the knot of her hair slightly loose and the composure she has chosen to put down for the duration of whatever this night is. "Okay," I say. She walks me backward. Her arm at my waist, guiding, not rushing, the same economy she brings to everything, nothing wasted. And the couch meets the back of my knees, and she sits with me, pulling me against her and her hand in my hair, the weight of her fingers at my scalp, slow, and my face against her neck. I breathe, cedar and cold linen, warmer at this proximity. Something underneath it, skin temperature, a warmth that is just her heartbeat against my cheek. The perimeter tablet blinks green on the counter, secure, 6 days, and counting. The city outside the film is shapes and light and motion that doesn't know it should stop. Her hand in my hair and her arm around my waist, and the safe house silent around us. "Riven," I say against her neck. "Yes," she says. "I'm going to finish the documentary." I know. "And when it's done, I'm going back into the field." I know. A pause. "And I'm going to need someone who sees things clearly," I say. "When I lose my nerve again." Her hand in my hair. Still. Then one deliberate motion, her fingers pressing gently once at the base of my skull and releasing, not moving away, just pressing and releasing, learning the specific weight of keeping something. "You didn't lose your nerve," she says. "You were scared. Those are different things. You told me that already. You needed to hear it twice." I look at nothing. The dark space above us, the industrial ceiling, the green light at the edge of my vision, her arm around me, her heartbeat, the throw blanket migrating to us from the arm of the couch, her free hand pulling it across without my having to ask, settling it over both of us. Tomorrow the rotation protocol happens. Tomorrow is a real thing with a real time attached to it. Tonight the distance isn't 12 inches. It is her hand at the base of my skull. It is her arm around my waist. It is the gap between where I end and where she begins, which is now the smallest it has been in 22 days. Which is now the size of a decision we both made in a dark room at 3 a.m, without pretending it wasn't exactly what it was. "Thank you," I say. "For what?" she says. I think about it honestly. For not keeping the 12 feet when you didn't have to anymore. She's quiet for a moment. Her thumb moves at the base of my skull. One small arc, 1 centimeter. Involuntary. The same motion her thumb made against the glass on the first day. The tell she tried to pull back from and couldn't. Only now she doesn't pull back from it. Mara, she says. Yes. When you go back into the field. Yes. Call me. I lift my head from her neck. I look at her face in the green-lit dark. The jaw, the dark eyes, the slightly loosened knot, the scar at her temple. The face of someone who has stopped managing and is looking back at me with the full weight of 22 days of careful distance, now converted into something with no professional category and no clean name. Okay, I say. She looks at me for a long, unhurried moment, the way she looks at the perimeter tablet, the way she looks at everything. Assessing, calculating, reading for breach. Except this time what she is reading is me, clearly, without the 12 feet, without the professional register. She puts her thumb against my cheek one more time. One slow, deliberate arc. From the angle of my jaw to the space just below my eye, the same motion, the same warmth, the same unhurried weight. Green light, she says quietly, looking at my face. Secure. She pulls me back against her. Her tactical jacket is on the floor where it fell, somewhere between the kitchen counter and here. She doesn't pick it up. She holds me instead, one arm at my waist, one hand in my hair, and the perimeter tablet blinks green on the counter, and the city moves outside the privacy film, like it doesn't know it should stop, and I breathe her in, cedar and warmth, and the specific weight of someone who has decided that keeping me safe means something she did not put in the contract. We don't speak again. We don't need to.